Hey guys, so this is AP World History, Chapter 5, Part 2, Society and Family in Ancient China. Okay, so the last episode we looked at pretty much how the Jia, the Shang, and the Zhao dynasties rose and fell in the Chinese area. Um, Also, just keep in mind that the Shang and the Zhao both had decentralized governments, and they really relied heavily on just pure allegiance to the king, to the dynasty, in order to retain their control over China. You know, the Zhao will end, leading into the period of warring states, and they really end because their subordinates begin to realize that they really don't need the help of the Zhao dynasty. They can have their own control over their own areas, and like I said, this will lead to the period of warring states. And it won't be until the Qin dynasty comes in and begins to give them stability. So, with that in mind, we're now going to look more at the social aspect of these dynasties, society and family in ancient China, and what that meant. So it starts with the ruling elites. Families occupied the most honored positions in Chinese society. So if you were in the elite class, you were pretty much living in a palace. You had a lot of food. You were getting taxes delivered to you. You were living the life. Ruling elites possessed much of the bronze, the way we saw in the especially in the Shang and the Zhao dynasties. Pretty much they had total control of that, and that was kind of their way of showing power to the people, to the commoners. And by doing that, they were able to also, establish their political authority. This is an example of a bronze helmet that they would wear. People who practiced specialized labor, they were kind of a step above the peasants and the merchants. They had, kind of a little bit of a better life only because they were creating this bronze weaponry, or they were creating jewels and textiles for the ruling elite. So they worked for the privileged classes, and because of that, they were able to have just a slightly better lifestyle than the commoners and peasants. In terms of merchants and trades, there's not a lot known about trading. We know that they probably linked trade networks to the west and south of China. Okay, and we also know that more than likely they came in contact with the Indus people as well, because they found pottery from China in the Indus area in Mohenjo-daro. Um, we also know that there's also some evidence of sailing because of the large oars that they found, large vessels of ships. So Zhao's dynasty shipbuilding emerged as a prominent business for mariners, and they learned how to navigate their vessels by the stars and heavenly bodies. And this is an example of a small artifact they found in one of the tombs that would suggest that there were ships that they did use. Okay, so the next discussion question: what can we infer about the interactions we know between Chinese dynasties? Continuing on with social order, looking at the peasants and the slaves, you see that there's semi-several peasants, and they didn't own any land, but they worked on the farms, and they were in the military as well, and they provided any other services that their lords would need. And in exchange for that, they were given plots of land. They were given pieces of land that they themselves could farm for themselves, and whatever they made off of that they kept, and just had to give a small portion to whoever was in charge of them. Slaves, there was a large number of slaves, and they usually came because they were enemies of war or they're captured during battle, and they would usually perform the hard labor like the large infrastructure projects. Looking at family and patriarchy, you have something called the veneration of ancestors, and essentially what that was honoring your ancestors. They believe that spirits of ancestors, they pass into another existence, and in that other existence, that kind of, as long as you honored and prayed for them, that these ancestors would be able to protect and support the surviving families. And this led to a strong ethic of family solidarity. That family was key, was very important, and you had that attachment to each other, and that everybody had to work hard in order to make the family successful. You kind of see how some of them would honor their past relatives and their ancestors. So, China was a patriarchal society, and they put most of their authority in the elderly males. They felt that they had the wisdom to help China be successful. Early on in early societies, the Chinese men would gain their public authority through the virtue of the female line of descent. But later on, as these dynasties grew over centuries, they kind of got rid of that, and it was just straight patriarchal society. They didn't need the family, the female line to show their power and authority. So, discussion question 9. How are the ideas of family and patriarchy still in existence in today's Chinese society? All right, so your big takeaways here would be one, highly patriarchal society. Also, that, the ruling elites, they were able to establish their power because they pretty much hoarded the bronze, the metallurgy from them. Also, people who are in specialized labor, they had just a little bit more of an advantage in terms of the way they lived next to the commoners that were there as well. In addition to that, we know that there was trade outside of China that was going on because we see it with artifacts that were found in other areas that are from China. And we also see this because of artifacts that were found that resembled ships to suggest that they also did, maritime trade as well. So the next time we're going to look at early Chinese writing and cultural development. So we'll see you then.